News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. In just a second, the NPR editor who called out the network for being totally anti-Trump, in the tank, woke, having absolutely no diversity of thought whatsoever. Having meetings talking about having a man he said was highly respected, one of the top, most respected, longtime employees there, say we were in an employee meeting and he says something to the effect of, we can't report that, the Hunter Biden laptop thing, because it would help elect Trump. So they're literally in these NPR meetings going over stories and stuff, and we can't report that on the laptop story because it'll help get Trump elected. That literally is why they didn't report on it. So they're like, we're Democrat operatives. Let's see how we can do news by helping Democrats get elected and Republicans lose. That's their news. That's not their news. That's how they plan out their news. So that's where we're at right now with them. I'm going to get you. Have you heard her tweets read, or have you seen her tweets that she wrote about Trump, the CEO of NPR, current one? Have you heard her say how there really is no exact truth? There's what people think, and that's what makes up the truth. There's many versions of the truth, and normally we would just go for the truth and report the truth, but no, I've got that audio too. We're in Orwellian times now. So, by the way, I did promise to finish off the scenarios for Joe Biden. So Trump has many scenarios to win. Primarily, as I mentioned, it is by winning. Michigan is a big one. Actually, his scenarios are but a lot more rosier, as I shared with you in the last segment. He can do North Carolina. That's most likely going to happen. In Georgia, most likely going to happen from where I sit. Honestly, I'm confident in those. But Pennsylvania is all he needs. Not going to happen, I don't think. I hope it does, but I don't think so. Then he can win either Michigan or Nevada. Michigan, yes. I'm not hopeful for Nevada, but maybe. The polling's incredible, but I just don't trust it. Again, I hope so. Or Michigan and Arizona. That's possible. That is very possible. Or Arizona and Wisconsin. I'm not as helpful about Wisconsin, but it's possible. But I really don't think that's a good path. I think the best path is he'll win North Carolina, he'll win Georgia. I'm confident of that. But then he's got to win. I think Michigan and Arizona is possible. I think that's the most likely one out of all of them. Biden's quote-unquote blue wall. He's got to win the kind of Rust Belt states, Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. His best strategy is based on winning Pennsylvania and Wisconsin. I think that's likely. I hate to say that, but I do. If he carries those two states, all he needs to win at that point is Michigan. I don't think it's going to happen this time, but you never know. If he wins Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan, it's over. Or Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and then Arizona and Nevada. It's possible, but I don't know about Arizona. Or Georgia. Not going to happen. Another scenario, Biden wins Georgia and Arizona. Not going to happen. Or Michigan and Georgia. Not going to happen. It is a crapshoot with a slight lead on Trump right now, but dang it, I'm telling you, 2 weeks can mean everything. 2 weeks, 1 week can mean everything and change everything. We have to remember that. Ay. Ugh. I don't like it. I don't like it. And then the other thing we can pray for is a landslide, but I'm telling you that can't be what our hope relies on. Okay, NPR editor resigned. Yuri Berliner, the guy who wrote the very, very critical article talking about how the network has basically gone full woke and is completely reporting nothing but leftist Democrat talking points. You know, the audience at NPR points that out. The audience used to be, I think, 60 Democrat, I think 20 or 30% independent, and like 20% Republican. It is now, that was in 2011, it is now 67% Democrat, 67% liberal. Dana Perino mentioned that on Fox today. 67% liberal and like 10% Republican, voters, and then so that's 77, and then maybe 20% independent of that. But it's more than 2/3 now is liberals. And they're getting $500 million of our money, and people say, well, that's not that much, but it's 1% of their funding. Kill 1% of the bottom line, please. Here is the new CEO of NPR. Listen to her say, we don't do truth. It's not about truth anymore. Truth is not relative. It's kind of what everybody else thinks, the whole totality thinks it is.
In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. Now, that is not to say that the truth doesn't exist, nor is it to say that the truth isn't important. Clearly, the search for the truth has led us to do great things, to learn great things. But I think if I were to really ask you to think about this, one of the things that we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience in all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths. And so in the spirit of that, I'm certain that the truth exists for you and probably for the person sitting next to you. But this may not be the same truth. This is because the truth of the matter is very often, for many people, what happens when we merge facts about the world with our beliefs about the world. So we all have different truths. They're based on things like where we come from, how we were raised, and how other people perceive us.
So there's really no truth. It's what we think. And so there really is no truth. We don't want to pretend like there's a truth. We don't want to focus on the truth. There's not a definitive truth anymore. There's none. She's in charge of NPR. Are you figuring this out now? She also tweeted out, Donald Trump is a racist in 2018. She deleted it, but it's out there. She was also shown wearing a hat with the Joe Biden logo, a presidential campaign logo on her hat. And she also tweeted out saying, I had a dream where Kamala and I were on a road trip at an unspecified location, sampling and comparing nuts and baklava from roadside stands. Woke up very hungry. That's who's in charge of NPR. You can trust them. They're self-professed liberal, 25-year editor of the business section, head editor, has resigned today after saying that he brought this all out. They suspended him for 5 days without pay, and he released a statement saying that he no longer can work there. He can't work in this environment at this place anymore. He said he accused the public radio network's new chief executive of having divisive views that confirmed the very problems he cited in the Free Press in his article. So here's my question for you. Do you think NPR is credible anymore? Have they become a leftist den of wokeness and Trump hatred to you? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. They sure have. And no, I don't trust them. I think it's like the New York Times. They're worse, honestly. They really are, but they're real close together. But they do report stuff that's true sometimes when it has nothing to do with wokeness. There's a story I have for them that actually I will use a little later, but it's one of these ones where you can't corrupt it with the leftist agenda. All that's coming up next. Our number is 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Do you think the NPR is credible anymore? Are you going to give them any more money? Do you listen to them anymore? And have they become a leftist den of wokeness and Trump hatred to you? They certainly have to me, and I don't think they're credible anymore. 800-288-WBAP.
In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done. Now, that is not to say that the truth doesn't exist, nor is it to say that the truth isn't important. Clearly, the search for the truth has led us to do great things, to learn great things. But I think if I were to really ask you to think about this, one of the things that we could all acknowledge is that part of the reason we have such glorious chronicles to the human experience in all forms of culture is because we acknowledge there are many different truths. And so in the spirit of that, I'm certain that the truth exists for you and probably for the person sitting next to you. But this may not be the same truth. This is because the truth of the matter is very often, for many people, what happens when we merge facts about the world with our beliefs about the world. So we all have different truths. They're based on things like where we come from, how we were raised, and how other people perceive us.
Well, the truth isn't really necessarily the truth, says now, that was before she was the CEO of NPR, now she is. She also tweeted about Trump being a racist, had a tweet of her wearing a Biden hat, and a dream about Kamala traveling around with her. She talked about, yet she's in charge. This is after the editor, the business editor for 25 years, Yuri Berliner, says, we lost America's trust because we're reporting things that we're withholding things like the Hunter Biden laptop stories because it will actually help Biden win and would help Trump win, so we're not going to report it. That's literally what a top reporter there said. With that said, we did find somebody that has called in that says that he does support NPR and he believes they're credible. That's interesting. John in Dallas, you've called in at 800-288-WBAP. That's 800-288-9227. Hey, John.
Hi, appreciate you taking my call.
Appreciate
I know
you,
it's
sir.
Kind of crazy for someone who listens to NPR to call your station.
No,
like,
it's not. It's not. Because traditionally, I used to love listening to it. I think everybody did that's in my camp. It's just gone so crazy leftist, in my opinion. But no, it's not, because a lot of intelligent people listen to both. It's stimulating discussions and such. Go ahead, though.
Yeah, well, I agree. I mean, I do like to listen to a range of news options. I really consider myself a moderate.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the things I value about NPR is a range of perspectives. I mean, it's unfortunate the things that came out this week. I think that shows that there is some bias, but I still believe they're credible.
Do you believe there's a range of perspectives when it comes to the Republican perspective?
Well, I don't know that they offer just a Republican perspective. I believe they do have updates that reflect both Republican and Democratic views. That's one of the reasons I listen to them.
Do you think that...
Unlike conservative radio that doesn't really seem to have the balance. I mean, I guess you're honest about it, but...
Do you think... Yeah, nobody's hiding anything here, right? Do you think that it's normal to have one of your top longtime reporters who this business editor, 25-year guy who's in charge of editing the business news NPR, says we've lost America's trust, and it's because of the extreme bias when I have somebody I respect who's a top journalist in NPR saying in our meetings, we're not going to report the Hunter Biden laptop story because it would help Trump get elected. Do you really feel they're going to be honest with you about things that might make Trump look good?
Yeah, I really believe that they will. I think that's one perspective in a large organization. I think any large news organization that's not biased to the left or the right, but that's trying to present a wide range, still has people who are biased, and so you're going to have top leaders who
if you
views
say,
like that.
If you say a statement like what I just told you that the business editor Yuri Berliner said, now former, that one of the top most respected reporters there said that, and nobody challenged it in the meeting. That's what he said he couldn't believe. Everybody agreed.
Well, I mean,
so then how can you tell me, one second, sir, how can you tell me when he says that's in their internal news meeting with their news staff, their top news people, and nobody challenges it and they all agree? How can you say they're going to report something honestly about Trump when they hid a story from you and they purposely said they did it because they didn't want to help him get elected?
He's no longer with the organization, right?
No, but he didn't do it. He saw it. He was with them until today. He left on his own volition. But he said this a week ago in his essay.
That's even higher sign of integrity. They left of his own volition.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he said, quote, when he resigned today, he says, I cannot work in a newsroom where I'm disparaged by a new NPR CEO whose divisive views confirm the very problems I cite in my Free Press essay. What happened was the CEO of NPR said, Catherine Maher, she tweeted out before she was hired in 2018 that Trump is a racist. She tweeted out a picture of her wearing a Biden hat. She tweeted out a dream about Kamala. What? So, I mean, she's the head, and she said today, as about his public letter that he wrote in the Free Press, quote, she said, questioning whether our people are serving our mission with integrity based on little more than recognition of their identity is profoundly disrespectful, hurtful, and demeaning. And so that's why he resigned. Do you think that's disrespectful and demeaning when he said what he witnessed as a 25-year NPR veteran?
I'm not sure about that, but it's not surprising that a executive is going to have a bias as well. Again, they're just stating their views, and I mean, in fact, the former president, has done things that were racist. So for people,
so is Joe Biden. So is Joe Biden, the current one.
Well, sure, I think that's true. I think
saying
white supremacy has a hold on America.
We can't bus people around like we can't bus people around in interracial busing. It's a jungle. It's a racial jungle, is what he said. Stuff like that, and he was besties with white supremacist Klansmen back in the day.
Yeah. I mean, if that's true, that's really unfortunate. I mean, I think we've got a lot of work to do to address white supremacy in our nation. I'm glad to hear that a conservative talk radio show is critical of that kind of racism.
Well, who wouldn't be critical of actual racism?
Right.
Do you know Biden was talking about white rage and white supremacy in our U.S. military? And do you know that he commissioned a study on that and to see how prevalent it was? Did you know about that?
No, that's great though.
Do you know what the percentage was?
They are prevalent.
They are prevalent. You know what the Biden administration found with its own study?
No,
there was none. That's why you didn't hear about it in NPR. There was none.
Well, I actually haven't heard about that on any other news radio. I mean,
you would have heard about it here, so that speaks to your testament that you listen here. Okay, so you trust them, and you think it's okay for them to literally say we're not going to cover Hunter Biden's laptop story, not because it's not true, but because it will help Trump get elected. Are you okay with that?
I'm not sure about that one. I want to look into that a little bit more, but I think you raised a credible point.
Well, they never did report it. They actually said they wouldn't. They reported publicly they would not report it because it's not true. They wouldn't. They thought it was a non-story. They disregarded it. Do you think it's a story?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that are possible stories or non-stories.
No, it was a true story. It was a true story. You're not familiar with it because you're listening to NPR. You're not familiar with it. You didn't know that Hunter Biden's laptop was found, and they found all these evidence of corruption and foreign unregistered FISA violations with him, and international federal international prostitution rings, which is why the FBI started investigating him. You didn't know about any of this?
Yes, I did know about that, and I think we've got a range of problems in our leadership in our country right now. It's unfortunate that we don't have really credible candidates.
You're breaking up a little bit. One last question for you. Does it disappoint you that NPR purposely withheld that story from you?
Not necessarily. Again, choosing which stories to report is something every
but why
has to decide.
Do you feel it's a newsworthy story?
I'm really not sure. I think
okay. Did you are you familiar with it?
Yes, but not enough to know that it's newsworthy. Again,
okay, all right. I'm going to roll, but I really recommend you keep listening to us a lot too. Your balance needs to be balanced out, my friend. I appreciate your call, John. Thanks for listening. Wow. He doesn't know any of this stuff, and he's not sure about a lot of stuff. He is a good NPR listener. Wow. All right, Josh in Dallas. This is going to be very interesting, Josh. Can't wait to hear from you next on the Chris Crock Show. Stand by, brother. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Do you trust NPR? Do you think they're credible anymore, and have they become a leftist den of wokeness and Trump hatred to you? 800-288-WBAP is our number, Chris Crock Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Do you think NPR is credible anymore? Have they become a leftist den of wokeness and Trump hating, as I strongly believe? Let me know when you get that caller. We just had a caller who was very interesting. He's an NPR guy, and he He literally, it didn't bother him at all with everything that's come out about it. Here we go. You trust them, and you think it's okay for them to literally say we're not going to cover Hunter Biden's laptop story, not because it's not true, but because it will help Trump get elected. Are you okay with that?
I'm not sure about that one. I want to look into that a little bit more, but I think you raise a credible point.
Well, they never did report it. They actually said they wouldn't. They reported publicly they would not report it because it's not true. They wouldn't. They thought it was a non-story. They disregarded it. Do you think it's a story?
I'm not sure. I mean, I think there are a lot of things that are possible stories or non-stories.
No, it was a true story. It was a true story. You're not familiar with it because you're listening to NPR. You're not familiar with it. You didn't know that Hunter Biden's laptop was found, and they found all these evidence of corruption and foreign unregistered FISA violations with him, and international federal international prostitution rings, which is why the FBI started investigating him. You didn't know about any of this?
Yes, I did know about that, and I think we've got a range of problems in our leadership in our country right now. It's unfortunate that we don't have really credible candidates.
You're breaking up a little bit. One last question for you. Does it disappoint you that NPR purposely withheld that story from you?
Not necessarily. Again,
why?
Choosing which stories to report is something every
but why?
We have to decide.
Do you feel it's a newsworthy story?
I'm really not sure. I think
okay. Are you familiar with it?
Yes, but not enough to know that it's newsworthy. Again,
okay, all right. I'm going to roll, but I really recommend you keep listening to us a lot, too. Your balance needs to be balanced. Okay, he did say yes because it's newsworthy. There's lots of... Well, wait a minute. It was newsworthy, but you were withheld that. NPR withheld that from you, and that's one of the reasons why Yuri Berliner wrote the whole column in the Free Press. And not only did they lean it to the left, but then I'll give you some more details. One of their top reporters that he respects was in a meeting with all their top people, and he was saying stuff like, we can't do this. It'll help Trump get elected, so we're not going to report on it. Adam Schiff was your Russia collusion guy. He ran everything with the Russian collusion on NPR, he said, and there was no Russian collusion, and when it came out that it wasn't, they didn't report it. They didn't follow up on it on NPR. The same thing with the NPR. He said Russiagate was not their only miscue at NPR, Berliner says. There was also COVID coverage, the origin of the pandemic, the Wuhan origin, the lab leak. All of that was not reported and was hidden from people. So much stuff you didn't know if you listen to NPR, and there's more and more he writes about it. So, isn't that amazing? You're not allowed to know certain things if you listen to NPR because they don't think you need to know about it, or they don't want you to know about it. That's not news. It's one thing to say, look, listen, if it's... Those are huge. COVID killed 20 million Americans. How is that not newsworthy where it came from? Right? How is the whole Russia collusion not being true after the Mueller report not reported? How do you allow somebody to come on and be your main source for Russia collusion? Turns out that everything he said was a lie. And it's proven by the Mueller report. How do you allow that to go without following up on that? It's amazing. So if you don't mind being lied to about the COVID pandemic that killed 20 million of us, if you don't mind being lied to about the president being investigated by the FBI for Russia collusion and it never happened, and if you don't mind lying about or the Hunter Biden laptop story, which polls revealed that 20% of or 17% of Pennsylvanians literally said they would have changed the vote if they would have known about the story. That would have won the election for Trump outright. If you don't want to hear about that, or you don't mind not hearing about it, then you don't mind getting major news stories that kill us, as far as the COVID pandemic, that are about our president falsely being colluding with Russians, and are about the president's son in international corruption, which puts his name on there, the big guy, 10% for the big guy, which Biden's the big guy. Everybody's admitted that now. Josh in Dallas, you're on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Chris. Hey, you stole my thunder there with the Steele dossier. I was gonna.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go. Don't ignore
okay.
Ignore what I said. Take your thunder. Take your thunder.
Alike.
What?
Great minds think alike.
They do.
So, no, but here's the thing. I'm not surprised at all. I've known this about NPR. I think NPR is it's essentially state-run media propaganda, and it has been for the better part of 2 decades. I'm not surprised. The problem with NPR is the fact that they're taxpayer funded.
Yes.
That's the biggest problem.
Yeah, I don't care.
The thing is, these callers, I expect this absolutely from NBC, ABC, CBS, all these. I absolutely expect that. Now, I know what's going on with NPR, but it still chaps my hide.
Right.
Your callers, though, that are supporting NPR, it doesn't surprise me at all because I've thought this a long time about liberals. They sit in their echo chamber. They don't want to be disturbed, and even when they are confronted with the facts, they don't want to engage with it. They just want to move on.
Yes.
And to sit here and say that I don't know enough about this, do you want a state-run media deciding what's news for you instead of giving you the information and letting you decide for yourself?
I guess the answer.
I
guess the answer on that is yes.
Profound level of ignorancy.
Right.
And these are the people that cost us the last election. And this right here with NPR, withholding these kind of stories and refusing to also refute other stories like the Steele dossier when it comes out, this is a big part of the election fraud that went down.
Yes. Because, for example, election fraud includes the New York Post story being blocked from being put on Twitter and Facebook. And it was true. And they knew it. And the Biden, the DOJ literally stopped it from going out because they hate Trump. The FBI was meeting regularly with Twitter and Facebook at that time. All the Twitter files have revealed this because Musk took over after he bought it, and it's all come public through liberal journalist Matt Taibbi, who's a well-known, renowned journalist who used to write for Rolling Stone and has written multiple best-selling books.
Chris, I was going to say one more thing. The thing about, I do need to get, the left point of view because I just need to know what it is I'm up against. But I only have to listen to one network for about 10 minutes because they all parrot the same talking points over and over and over again.
Yeah. Listen, I love what you said. You brought up something to think about that it really hits it right, I think, on NPR. If they want to do this and that listener who shares listenership with us and with NPR wants to continue to watch it, that's great. But I think you're right because it is a liberal kind of an outlet, which is fine, like Air America. That's kind of what it is to me. And so, Air America failed because its premise was its premise was, and this is why it failed. And nothing can succeed if its premise is this. Ready? If the premise is, and the same thing goes for comedy. Same thing goes for a movie, okay, ready? If the premise starts with, let's get Democrats elected, or if it starts with, let's get Republicans elected, it's going to fail. Because you must start out with the end in mind. What is the end in mind? Is it to attract listeners and to hold them and to grow them? Then you must entertain them, inform them, tell them something they don't know. That's my job. And it doesn't matter if you're liberal, conservative, or whatever. If you move people and inform them, you will win. In this case, for NPR, we should never give any money because it's a leftist outlet, which is fine. I love what you said. There's no anger. There's no negativity. And it's just, we should not give you any money. Why would I? It's like criticizing MSNBC. I don't expect them to change. That's their whole format.
They doubled down on it, though. They
what?
doubled down on it, and they've doubled down on this stance, coming out and attacking this editor, and just basically coming out and just, the thing is all these groups in NPR, they're not hiding it anymore. They're absolutely brazen about it.
Yeah, which is fine, but we just need to not have any money go there. That's all there is to it. We can't funnel something that is literally 100% biased now. I mean, it just is what it is. So I love what you said there. They can be an MSNBC or whatever. That's fine. I don't care, but we just shouldn't give them a dime. That's just not fundable. That's let them go commercial. What are they afraid of? They're a success, supposedly. I mean, that's fine. Be a success, but not with our pay. Appreciate your call, Josh. I'm going to give you a few examples of this. We'll take your call as well coming up next at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Do you think NPR is credible anymore, and have they become a leftist den of wokeness to you and Trump hatred to you? 800-288-WBAP. I'm going to give you more examples from Yuri Berliner's original column in the Free Press on April 9th, some 8 days ago. It's the examples are really need to be heard. That's next. All right. The question is, do you think NPR is credible anymore? Have they become a leftist den of wokeness and Trump hatred to you? On News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Yuri Berliner just resigned today. He was the business editor for 25 years. He says he can't work at a newsroom anymore where They've lost their way, and there's no room for any other view but the liberal left view, and he is a self-professed liberal. He's what liberals used to be, open to debate, go back and forth. I'm thinking back to when I was in Madison, Wisconsin, a very liberal town for 2.5 years. NPR ratings are probably through the roof there. I succeeded wildly there. Which propelled me to larger markets from there. But I remember debating some extremely leftist people, and nobody got mad at each other. Nobody hated each other. Nobody called anybody this or that. Sometimes some of the stuff was thrown around, but I mean, overall, this is what we're seeing today is just really, really sad. And the classic, like Jonathan Turley, George Washington University law professor, is a liberal. He wanted to impeach. He said we should have impeached George W. Bush, but yet he's on Fox News as a regular contributor, and he's always going after Biden and the left for its bias, including NPR, because he's a classic truth-telling liberal. Alan Dershowitz is a truth-telling classic type of a liberal, for example, as well. But let me go to a few other examples from this column that he wrote, the original one in the Free Press, Yuri Berliner, who just resigned today from NPR. He said today only 11% of the listenership of NPR describe themselves as somewhat conservative or very conservative, 21% middle of the road, 67% are very or somewhat liberal. He says we're not just losing conservatives, we're also losing moderates and traditional liberals. He says an open-minded spirit no longer exists within NPR, and now, predictably, we won't have an audience that reflects America. He talks about Adam Schiff as the expert on 25 times during Trump-Russia collusion, and during many of those times, Schiff alluded to purported evidence of collusion. They became the drumbeat of NPR, he says, but when the Mueller report was found out, no credible evidence of collusion, NPR's coverage was sparse, noticeably sparse. Russiagate quietly faded from our programming. That wasn't the only miscue from NPR, he says. The laptop story with Hunter Biden. The timeless journalistic instinct of following a hot lead story was being squelched, this liberal journalist says. During a meeting with colleagues, I listened as one of NPR's best and most fair-minded journalists said it was good we were not following the laptop story because it would help Trump. So your news is now based on whether it'll help Trump or not, and our caller 25 minutes ago that said he thinks the news is great, he doesn't think it's a big deal, and he's not sure about certain things that I gently confronted him with, and he's not sure. Well, just so you know, if it helps Trump, you're not going to hear it. So that's literally how they roll. So if you're comfortable with that, because it might make the opponent look good, that's a big problem. I mean, I want to know what makes Joe Biden look good so I can know what the strengths and weaknesses are. I don't see why you shouldn't know what the strengths are, and that's why I hope we come and politically hammer your A word, the Democrats, this November. Keep doing that, but. Again, if you want that, that's great, but we shouldn't be funding that. NPR's COVID coverage, he said. The lab leak theory was dismissed, called racist and right-wing conspiracy through NPR, but it wasn't the case. He talked about how eventually it was obvious that it was proven that it was most likely a lab leak. And he says, I'm offering 3 examples of what widely followed stories where we believe we faltered. I believe we faltered. Our coverage is out there in the public domain. Anybody can read or listen and make your own judgment. But to truly understand independent journalism, how it suffered at NPR, you need to step inside the organization. And he just goes on and gives an in-depth thing. So don't listen to me. Listen to a 25-year veteran who is a liberal. And if you don't believe him, then I don't know if there's anybody that's going to change anything. And maybe you belong there as a echo chamber that you appreciate being around. And unfortunately, you might not know that.